What's it gonna do? Hey, everyone. Hey, everyone. Looks like people are still coming in, so we'll give it a few minutes before we get started. Anybody know if Ben or Scott are coming on?
Ben's on.
Oh, okay.
Hey, Niv.
Hey, what's going on, Adam?
Hey, I have Adam's phone. He's out on family leave. So I just, yep. So we have, it's a mixed group that I emailed about here. We've got leasing agents who just lease. They do move-ins. So the law is changing that affects them and how they do move-ins.
Okay.
But they run applications. They deal with co-signers and all of those questions and how do we deny people. And then you've got managers who deal with the eviction process, but they do the roommate swaps as well for the applications. We all do move-ins and we're all involved in how do we retain tenants and keep them and what laws are changing 7-1 because we just got done with the 4-1 law changes. So let's change it up again for more for more compliance starting in July. So we'll probably cut leasing agents after about 20 minutes.
Okay.
And then we can talk eviction and lockout and tenant management with the rest of us after we cut leasing agents. Cool?
Okay, sure. All right.
Cool. Thanks, Niv.
No problem. So let's go ahead and get started. Just FYI, I am recording this. It's mostly for marketing purposes. Because I cut this up and I put these little videos on LinkedIn. So I hope nobody minds, just letting everybody know. don't let that detract from you asking questions, because all questions are good questions. And if you have a question, chances are at least a few other people have the same question. All right, so let's talk about leasing. How does it work? What are the important things to know? Number one, this is is not a new law, but it's a law that I see sometimes that people don't really understand. You can never say we don't take Section 8. And it doesn't matter what the unit is. I don't care if you're renting out your most luxury 5-bedroom penthouse on Santa Monica Boulevard for $15,000. If a person texts you or calls you and says, do you take Section 8? Okay, it's like in Ghostbusters, you know, Ray, when someone asks you if you're a god, you say yes. So it's the same thing here. If someone asks you if you take Section 8, you say yes. There's no requirement that you actually accept that person as a tenant. Obviously, they're not going to qualify. Section 8 is not going to pay for that unit. But a lot of the times, the reason they're asking you is to set you up for a lawsuit. And you don't want to be set up for a lawsuit. There was a vast proliferation of these lawsuits. It seems to have died down because I think word got out. But there are people who, there's one lady, she filed like 15 lawsuits in a month. That was 1 month. And then continued to do it again. And what she did was she would text, not call, she would text. It's very smart. Landlords, usually mom and pops, and say, hey, do you take Section 8? And they didn't know about the new law about source of income discrimination or that was a thing. They'd say, no, we don't want to take Section 8 because that was a right you used to have. And they'd immediately file a lawsuit for that. And it's a scam. She had no intention of renting. She already had Section 8 and was already in a unit. She had no intention of leaving. But it didn't matter. They went out and demanded $16,000 from every single person, and they usually got it because that's cheaper than fighting it. So it was like a new version of the ADA claims. So don't make that mistake. Someone says, yeah.
Question on that one, Niv. Is it all forms of aid?
No, government-sponsored subsidies.
So if my church wants to pay my rent, I don't have to accept it?
No, you do not. As it says very, very clearly that it's government-sponsored. So if someone comes in and says, oh, well, I don't make enough money, but my church will pay my rent, that doesn't qualify. That's not income.
Okay.
Right? And it's also not something where that's a source of income discrimination. It has to be government-sponsored. Okay? Actually, hold on 1 second. That might be for the credit check, but not necessarily source of income. That's actually a good question. Hold on 1 second. No, I was right. Okay. It has to be government sponsored. So it has to be a program created by cities, counties, and public agencies to address growing homelessness. Okay. So it does have to be government sponsored in some way. So like you said in your example, the church is not source of income. And if the person needs the church to pay their rent, obviously they can't afford the rent. That's not a good thing.
Niv, do we have a like a list of government-sponsored programs that that we can have, or is it just something that we need to, kind of vet out? Because those are always changing, and obviously Section 8 is the one. But my curiosity is there's an active live list that we can eventually have?
Not that I'm aware of, because you have these programs. For example, I'm just looking at the Civil Rights Department of the State of California. They list something called HCV housing choice voucher. That's, I think, also known as Section 8. But there's also HUD VASH programs. I think that's veterans assistance, homelessness prevention and rapid rehousing, housing opportunities for person with AIDS. And these are all government sponsored things. So you kind of have to dig into what they're proposing and figure out whether or not it's government sponsored. And government sponsored doesn't mean that that agency gets government money, or is sponsored by government money and then gives out the money. That doesn't make them a public agency. They have to be like the actual public agency, because a lot of these private entities, like for example, Hoppic, get money from the government, but they also get money from private places. They're not part of the government.
So it's safe to say that we can ask if they're a government sponsored public agency.
Yeah. I mean, they're not, I don't think asking the tenant is a good way of going about it. I think you have to do
their agent. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, they're not gonna know. But yeah, you should certainly don't even necessarily ask that person, because the person from the organization is going to think, oh, well, we get money from the government, so therefore we're government sponsored. No, there's a big difference between administering a government program and you're hired to actually do that versus, oh, we just get money like a grant from the government and then we administer however we like. It's a big difference. Okay, so yeah, very good question. So again, don't tell those people that you don't take it. Most of the scammers who are trying to set you up for a lawsuit don't get into all the details of that. They usually just say Section 8. Okay.
Is there a approximate amount of time we are allowed to take to respond to the request of someone, Section 8, etc.? You know, on busy seasons, sometimes it gets busy, and I just want to make sure that I know, like, we're not falling too far behind on things like that.
Excellent question, Jeff. And that gets into the big question of how do you deny people without getting into trouble? Now, Ben, you got a question? Oh, sorry.
Okay. No, I just agreed with that question. Yeah.
Right.
Thank you.
So there is one time when you are required to tell someone the reason you are denying them. And that is when you deny them because of their credit score. Okay? Or because of something to do with their credit. If they have judgments on their record, I wouldn't necessarily say that that's credit related. That's really more you have litigation against you. But let's just throw it in for a second. But you might also deny someone for a panoply of other reasons. So the question is there any obligation to A, tell them within a certain amount of time that you're denying them? But more fundamentally, do you have to tell them you're denying them at all? And if it's not for credit, the answer is no. There is no maximum time. There isn't even a requirement that you reply to them at all. So let's say you're a much smaller organization, you're a mom and pop organization, and you get flooded with 100 applications. Do you have to sit there and tell 99 of them no and just tell the one guy yes? Nope. No rule like that. Now, again, this is more of a question for your superiors and how you want to run the business. Other people who do fair housing training will tell you it's very important to create a record of why you said no to every single person so you can prove that it was non-discriminatory. That doesn't work because you can take any reason and make it discriminatory. You tell someone, well, you don't make enough money. They'll say, well, the reason I don't make enough money is because of institutional racism in the private sector. And so really, you are gaslighting me and discriminating against me because of my race. I've seen them say stuff like that, right? They could take any reason and stick it into one of the discrimination boxes. You can take something and turn it into something else. You cannot take nothing and turn it into something else. So you cannot do the alchemy of evidence. So my suggestion, and I think I'm pretty much the only person who makes this suggestion, is when you have someone that you want to say no to, and you feel like that person's kind of going to be a pain in the butt, do what the government does, right? Sit on his application. He calls you, we're still processing it. He calls you again, we're still processing it. 3 weeks later, sorry, we're still processing. We're very busy. 3 months later, oh man, we lost your application and then we found it again. We're still processing. He says, you rented the apartment to someone else 2 months ago. We did? You're kidding me. Jeff, did you rent that apartment to someone else? You did? Why didn't you tell me? I'm so sorry. We're so inefficient and bad at our jobs.
I am bad.
Right? You just do what the government does. You don't tell them no. Because if you don't tell them no, you never decline them. You're just really bad at doing your jobs of processing applications. Versus you telling them no, and you know that this person is looking for a fight, is looking for a lawsuit. I promise you, no matter what reason you give them, you have like a negative 700 credit score. Okay. You make $5 a day. They'll make that into discrimination. Believe me. We had a guy, and this is how I know this. This is how I learned this. COVID time. We had a guy who applied to an apartment, no income, not little income, no income, no credit score, not low, no credit score. Okay, he's like off the grid. He came in with a COVID voucher. A COVID voucher is not Section 8. It does not last forever. It's a limited time voucher for 1 year. And they denied him. So the guy went to the city of Santa Monica city attorney, and he went to legal aid. And they both wrote letters saying, you have to take him. Because the reason you're discriminating against him is because of source of income. And the notion that you used his credit, that it has no credit, well, you're relying on traditional notions of credit, as opposed to what postmodern traditions of credit. Like, is this an art class, or are we looking at the guy's credit? It doesn't matter, though. They went in, demanded, they turned it into discrimination, even though this person clearly could not afford to stay in this apartment. Clearly. So that's why you don't say no, because when you don't say no to a person like that, they come to LAFLA. They come to their government person. And they say, did you get denied? He says, well, no. So they say, so you have to wait for them to deny you. It's like, yeah, but they're not getting back to me. That's not illegal. Denying him and discriminating against him, that might be illegal. But just being inefficient, not illegal at all. So it's better to be inefficient than it is to be a defendant in a lawsuit. You can use as much or as little of that as you guys like. Has to be something you guys decide on an internal business perspective. But people who follow this tend to not get in trouble. Now, you have to follow it 100%. You can't do 50-50. So if you tell him no, but don't give him any details, that doesn't work. So you either follow this or you tell them no and tell them the details. But don't try to do the middle thing. That's even worse than either one.
So should we run credit as late as possible?
No, run credit whenever you'd like.
Oh.
Right? And again, if you're denying someone solely because of the credit score, there is a law that says you have to let them know. Other than that, do what you want.
I don't believe we can deny Section 8 due to credit anymore, though, correct?
That's a different issue. So when a specifically government-sponsored subsidy person comes in, you have to now affirmatively give them the option of saying, well, instead of us running your credit, you can give us proof of verifiable legal income. And you have to compare what they're giving you to whatever your rental criteria is. So let's say it's 3x. They have to make income of 3x versus the rent. You compare that to their portion of the rent. So say a person comes in with a, we'll call it a $2,000 Section 8 subsidy for a $2,500 apartment. Their part is $500. And let's say your rental criteria is 3x. You have to make sure they make $1,500 a month. You cannot force them to prove they make $7,500 a month. If they did, they probably wouldn't get Section 8. It doesn't make a lot of sense. right? So that's how you would do that math. And that's what you do for, again, government subsidy folks who are coming in instead of checking their credit. And yes, you do have to give them that option. They don't take it, but if they do take it, then you have to look at that verifiable proof. Now, what does that mean? Means theoretically bank statements, 1099s, W-2s, pay stubs, things like this. If all they give you is a bank statement, I don't call that verifiable unless you guys have one of those programs that verifies the bank information independently of them just showing you a bank statement. Reason being, I can show you a bank statement that says I have $1 trillion. It will take me maybe 30 seconds to put together on Adobe PDF. And you will not know the difference. Adobe will match the font. I will be the richest man in the world on paper. And anybody can do this. So showing you a bank statement that says I have $1 trillion is not really verifiable means of legal income. If they start showing you 1099s and W-2s and things like that to support that, or even just copies of checks to support the income that's in the bank statement, that starts to look more verifiable. All right, so that's what we do for people with government subsidy. Niles application process. So the application process, I mean, it's fairly simple. They apply. You have to apply the same rental criteria to everybody. There are new rules about charging the application fees. So Ben, I don't know how you guys came down on that issue. The rules for charging the fees were sort of restrictive. So in other words, if you wanted to charge application fees, you had to follow certain rules. The rules being that you have a rental criteria and you have to take the first person who meets the rental criteria. And you have to take every application in the order that they come in, or you have to refund the application fee to everyone except for the person you take if you don't want to follow that protocol. So I recommended to a lot of people, if you don't want to follow either of those protocols, simply don't charge application fees. So I don't know how you guys came down on what you wanted to choose.
Can I still process the application refund in the same manner, knowing that I'm following the criteria set out in the order that they came in, and until they bring their request for the refund to me, we are still processing the refund. But when they bring it to me, all of a sudden that process has been figured out and we have refunded them?
I'm not fully
meaning sometimes it takes a while to refund our app fees. So if they don't ask me to refund their app fees, I'm still processing the refund. But as soon as they ask, I'm able to process it a little bit quicker and jump them in front of the long queue.
I think it might be, it depends on which one you're doing, but one of them requires you to refund it within 7 days. Let me just take a look at this real quick.
7 days of us leasing it to someone else, correct?
7 days of tenant selection or 30 days of application submission, whichever comes first. So if you have to give it back to someone, it's either 7 days of tenant selection. That means within 7 days of you picking someone, if you're doing the method that requires you to refund everybody, you have to proactively refund everybody within 7 days.
Even if the criteria is set and we take the order they come in and the order number one person applies, we run them. We've prioritized them first, but they submitted an incomplete application. So we send a response to them saying, hey, you have submitted an incomplete application. We are missing this and this. Until we have a fully submitted application, we have to move on to our next person in line. We go to person number two. Do we have to refund number one if they never have completed it?
So again, if you're following, there's two protocols you can choose, and only one of them requires you to refund everybody else. So let's take the first protocol, for example. So that's that the completed applications are considered in the order in which they come. So that means if someone has an incomplete application, they're not even in line. So that's number one. Two, the first applicant who meets the established criteria is approved automatically. Okay. Applicants are not charged unless their application is actually considered. And then that's it. That's pretty much it. So if you follow those three rules, you don't have to refund everyone else.
Got it. Okay.
Thank you.
If you do the second protocol, which is I'm not going to follow those three rules, and you still want to charge application fees, then you have to refund everybody who didn't get picked. And that's within 7 days of picking somebody or 30 days of when the application was submitted by the person who you have to refund, whichever comes first. So you kind of have to pick which one you're doing if you're going to take these application fees. All right, but again, if you're doing the first one, you don't have to refund people, but you do have to follow those rules, which are somewhat restricted. So up to you guys.
Thank you.
All right. There is the other issue about taking pictures for the purpose of the security deposit.
Yeah.
The new rules are, it's really quite simple. Before the tenant comes in, but after you've made the unit ready, so pretty much the day or 2 days before they move in, you got to take pictures of the entire apartment. And when I say entire apartment, I mean the entire apartment. A simple way of making sure you've taken every corner is stand in every room, make sure you have the entire floor, the entire ceiling, and all 4 walls. Make sure you are also getting the closets and the bathrooms and pretty much every surface that's there. Just yesterday, I saw a picture of a completely mold-infested wall, and someone just didn't know that mold had been festering due to a pipe burst behind one of the walls in the closet. So you want to make sure that if things like that happen, that you gave the tenant a clean apartment. They're the ones that messed it up, regardless of what it happens to be, whether it's mold or their kids scribbling on the inside of the wall, whatever it is. You now need to make a record of what the apartment looked like a few days or a day before they moved in.
And do we share this with the tenant?
You do not have to share any of the photos with the tenant until the time that you actually do the disposition. All right. And so you're going to take photos again. This is kind of jumping to the end of the tenancy, but you're going to take photos again right when they when you do the pre-inspection, if they want one, because you have to offer it to them. They have to say, yes, we want one, and then you come and do it. At that time, take another round of photos. And this time you're really going to focus just on the things that need to be fixed. After they move out, before you make the corrections, before you make the repairs, another round of photos showing all the damage. After you make the repairs, another round of photos showing the things that you repaired and what it looked like after you were done. And this is all to demonstrate, well, this is the apartment I gave you. This is the apartment as it was on the day I told you, you have 2 weeks to fix these things before you move out. Then you moved out, and this is what the apartment looked like after you moved out, meaning you did fix these things, but you didn't fix those, or maybe you just didn't fix anything. Or maybe you fixed it all. That never happens. And then I made all of my repairs, and now this is what the apartment looks like to prove that I actually did those repairs. And so those sets of photos you're going to need to give to the tenant once you start making deductions from their security deposit. You do not have to print these. These can all be provided in a link, as long as that link doesn't expire, or on a thumb drive.
What if when someone moves in and they say, "Oh, you don't need to take pictures. It's good." Do we have to document that somewhere? That they said no?
No, you have to tell them, no, I'm taking the pictures.
Oh, okay.
And plus, it's not up to them. You're going to take the pictures before they move in.
Okay.
So if they're moving in on June 1st, you're there May 30th. Right? This is not optional. Yeah.
Okay, and this part of the law goes into effect 7/1, right?
Yeah. Okay, so
Okay.
Jody, you had a question? Okay, what's your question?
Yes, I think it helps with the time-stamped photos. However, I noticed that the address doesn't, sometimes it's not exact address, but it's like, what do you
Oh,
think?
well, timestamped is fine. It's usually in the metadata anyway. But even if it's not timestamped, you can always, just take a picture of someone else's phone showing the date, and then it's kind of clear that all the other photos are from that basket. What I would just suggest you do is have a protocol. I don't know if you guys use Dropbox or, oh, Joe asks, is there reason video is not good enough? You can use video. That's totally fine. Pictures, video, doesn't really matter. A video is technically just a bunch of pictures. So yeah, that's totally fine. I'll tell you the one reason video is not great is if we start litigating it. It's a lot of work to take the video and now take screenshots and divide it up into separate photos. It's easy to attach photos as an exhibit in litigation. It's harder to attach video. I've done it. I actually just had to do it a couple weeks ago, and it worked just fine, but it's a little bit more difficult to do. It requires the court to then go on a link or give them a thumb drive. So it's fine to do if you need to. If it's more efficient, it's okay. So again, what you want to do is, just like you have a file for every tenant as they go in. So you have I assume you have a unit, and then every unit has a file for that particular tenant who's living there. In that file, you want to just start dropping the photos. So they were supposed to move in on June 1. Here's all the May 31st photos. And then 2 weeks before they move out, make another folder. Here are all the pre-move out photos. And then another folder. Here are all the post-move out photos. Another folder. Here are all the post-repair photos. So every single folder, every single tenancy is going to have those 4 folders for those 4 sets of pictures. And then when you do the dispensation letter, you say, here's a link, Dropbox or Google Docs link to all the photos and the dates, the folder name, I should say the date it was taken. So that you're fully in compliance, not having to print anything. Now, that does not work for the letter itself. The letter itself still has to be mailed. You can also email it, but the letter itself has to be mailed. That letter can contain the link, or it can contain a thumb drive, whatever you'd like. You don't have to print out the photos, but you do still have to mail the letter. In addition, and if you'd like to, you can email it. All right, good. Any questions?
I actually have a question.
Yeah.
I just wanted to kind of go back a little bit and touch on something with applications. So, for example, I know you said when we get applications in, we have to choose the first group that actually qualifies and take them first. So let's say we take them first, we draft them a lease and we send it out, and they're sitting on this lease for 7-10 days. Is there any law that, like, pretty much do we have to give them any amount of time that they want, or is there a deadline in which we can say, hey, like, you've taken too long, we have to move on?
I would write to them and say, you have X number of days to sign this lease. If you don't, offer is rescinded. And you can make that number whatever you'd like. 1, 7, 13, 18, doesn't matter.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Yeah. And I would actually have a protocol where you say exactly that. Number 1, until the lease is signed.
It's in the document, actually.
It's in our lease, right? Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay. But also tell them, look, we're not going to honor this even if you sign it on day 3 if your protocol says you have to sign it in 2 days.
Yep.
And they're the ones that applied. They're the ones that want the apartment. It shouldn't take too long to just sign it. Let's see what else we got. We talked about denials, talked about application. You do have to have, I would say, some sort of across-the-board rental criteria. That's something you should publish, and that's something that all of your leasing agents, managers should have. You can essentially set it however you'd like, but it just has to be applied across the board. You want everyone to have 700 credit score? No problem, but you got to apply it across the board.
Yeah, we have it in ranges and we update it yearly.
That's fine.
Yep.
That's fine. Okay. I think that's pretty much it for the intake leasing part. So I know, Ben, you said you wanted
Yeah, leasing agents, thank you. I know some of y'all have said you got a jet for showing, so I appreciate it. You're welcome to stay on because we're going to talk difficult tenants and evictions if you want to talk. If not, we'll see y'all soon. Thank you.
All right. Difficult tenants. The only kind I ever get to hear about. Yeah. So I pretty much have a simple rule. If somebody is emailing me or calling me or talking to me about a tenant, that tenant's insane. The rule has never been broken. No one ever calls me and talks to me about, well, this tenant is paying their rent on time, is a darling to work with, never complains, and doesn't break any of the rules. I don't get to hear about that guy ever. I only get to hear about the difficult people. So don't feel bad if you have to call me about a difficult person. Everybody has that issue. How do you deal with them? Depends on what level of difficulty we're talking about. There are difficult tenants who are just a pain in the butt because they complain a lot. But other than them complaining a lot, they're not really doing anything wrong. They pay their rent on time. They're not really breaking any rules. They're just unpleasant to deal with because they complain about every tiny ticky little thing. There's not really much we can do about that person, right? I tend to view this sort of passive aggressive approach to them as the one that's going to bother them the most into leaving voluntarily. In other words, you give them the same kind of responses you get when you complain to Delta Airlines. We value your business. We're going to look into this, right? And then you never hear back from them. So I'm not saying that you shouldn't fix the things they're talking about. If they have legitimate maintenance requests, you have to fix those things. But if they're just complaining about crazy stuff like, oh, there's a cell tower on the roof and it's I feel the magnetic pull is affecting my health, and they're just a nut, you just got to say, oh, well, we'll look into that. Don't get into an argument with a nut. You're never going to win that argument, right? So that's number one. If they're doing things that are now verging on harassment, and they don't have to be harassing the other tenants, even harassing the staff or you as managers can qualify as a nuisance that will rise to the level of an evictable action. What it can't be is a one-time thing. Well, again, I should say there's a caveat to that. It depends on how bad that one thing was. If the one-time thing was they brought out their gun and started waving it around, or as I've had to deal with a number of times, samurai sword or machete, those are real stories. That's probably enough to evict them, even if they just did it the one time. If they just yelled at you once or said some bad words to you on the phone and you felt offended, I'm not going to be able to evict that person. If that starts to happen on a routine, constant basis, then I might be able to evict that person, but we need evidence. This is really the big issue when it comes to disturbing tenants, is that we cannot evict them unless we have evidence. The evidence has to consist of photos, videos, complaints from other tenants who are actually willing to come testify. And this is another issue that happens a lot. You'll have 17 complaints from all the tenants around this one crazy person who's threatening to kill all of them. And they say, you need to get this person out. And then we say, fine, come to court and testify. So, no, I'm not coming to court to testify. He might kill me. We can't do anything with that. If you're not going to come testify, we can't do our job because we can't use their emails. We can't use their texts or phone messages as evidence. They actually have to come testify. And you just need to tell them that. If you don't want to come testify, we will not be able to evict this person. So either you feel strongly enough about it that you are willing to come testify, or if you don't want to testify, you're going to have to continue to deal with this person. There's also no law against them getting a restraining order against that person or them suing that person. So they can also file their own claims. But in order for us as the landlord side, as the manager side, to do anything about this tenant when it's a nuisance or even a cure or quit that is of this kind of variety of eviction, we really do need evidence. And yeah, James.
No, sorry. kind of related to this, I guess, a little bit, not for eviction, but the building I live in, it's got a nice courtyard and stuff, and I have a lot of dogs. And
Yeah.
there's like 2 tenants that every time they bring their dog out on the opposite side of the building to go out front to do their thing, they bark every time. And I've talked to the tenants about it. It wakes me up. The tenants come, and they're the nicest tenants in the world. And they just say, I don't know what to do. The dog gets excited, but it's every single day. I'm up at 5 a.m, 4:45 because it echoes in the lobby. And I'll look at the tenants walking out through my window, and they're embarrassed or trying to get their dog to be quiet. It's just how the dog is. Is there anything?
Yeah,
Can
that's
we do
sure.
3 days? Can we do 3 days for that? Even though they're not doing it purposefully and they're not being rude. They're being good dog owners. It's just their dogs just go crazy when they're getting ready to go outside.
I explain it like this always. The more extreme example of that is, let's say somebody has an emotional support animal. And so they weren't supposed to bring a pet to begin with, but they brought it in, gave you the BS ESA letter, and now you got to deal with the pet. The fact that the dog is an ESA, or even the fact that the person is allowed to have a pet under the lease, doesn't mean that they are allowed to disturb the other tenant's quiet enjoyment. And that can be either through excessive barking at non-business hours. 5:45 to me is still the middle of the night because I'm not a farmer. So that's not okay. And the fact that they can't control their dog, that's their problem, not your problem. It's the same thing. It's the same thing when a dog is being, let out without a leash, or pooping and peeing everywhere, or a lot of the times dogs are just aggressive. And this will say, well, this is my emotional support pit bull. This is my emotional support German Shepherd, who looks like it's going to murder all of the tiny children in the apartment. That is not okay. The fact that you need emotional support from a literal murder dog does not trump my right to have my children not die in the apartment building. And so that is still a nuisance. Same thing with the types of animals they want to bring in. It's not just aggressive dogs. People have tried to bring in emotional support, crazy birds, falcons and eagles and hawks and things. No, you do not get to bring your emotional support carnivorous bird or emotional support crocodile into the apartment. That doesn't work. So do not be intimidated by people saying, I'm going to have my legal team. I don't know. Everyone in LA has an entire legal team. They never have a lawyer. They have a whole legal team. Everyone is OJ. I don't get it. But they're going to say, I'm going to have my legal team and I can do whatever I want. The apartment building does not belong to the tenants. They are not free from their responsibilities as tenants to not bother the other tenants. So they're making a lot of noise middle of the night. Yeah, we 3-day them. If they can't get their dogs to be quiet, you either need to leave with your dog or get a different dog. Or get your dog to be quiet. If you can't do any of those things, you're going to get evicted.
Niv, Laura Potter here. I kind of have a similar question in regards to controlling things that make noise. Obviously, we can't do much about families that live in an apartment building that have children living a modern life. But we do get lots of complaints about people reaching out who live, below households that it's harder for them to adjust because they're just non-compatible neighbors. When you have an elderly woman living below a family with 4 toddlers, and it seems like for the elderly woman, the people above her are moving furniture, jumping off couches, and throwing basketballs all day.
Right.
What's the appropriate response to give to the woman or to the elderly person who can't handle the noise, but also to the person above that's like, everyone has a right to quiet enjoyment. But there is a line there. We can never mention, hey, your kids are being too loud, but just like, you have to not let a dog run around the house all day and throw balls in the house. Like there's, is there some sort of statement that can be made that isn't going to be, seen as discriminatory against us for asking them to manage things better?
Right. It all depends on the circumstances. So I'll give you an example. I had 2 tenants who were fighting. They were living in a duplex. The one lady has 4 kids. And she wakes up very, very early in the morning, and for some reason decides she wants to put her heels on at the time that she's getting all the kids ready, 6 o'clock in the morning, and stomp around her second floor apartment, which she does not need to do. She can put the heels on as she's leaving. And then you have the bottom unit who are influencers or, I don't know, Instagram people, and they live a completely different schedule, staying up all night and then waking up at noon. And they want their entire 7 a.m. to 12 p.m. time to be as quiet as it usually the rest of us are staying between midnight and 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. Both of those people are doing wrong. One, the lady is not doing, she's causing noise that she doesn't need to cause. There's like no reason for it. If you know that you are walking around in the heels very, very early in the morning, just don't do that. There's no reason to do that. At the same time, the people below are making an unreasonable request because they don't even want there to be any noise, including the kids, even after a normal time you would expect them to leave. So when you're living, this is just what you tell everybody, when you're living in a multi-family building, you need to expect that there will be a certain amount of noise. If you want peace and quiet and all you hear is birds chirping and crickets, there's places like Chatsworth and San Bernardino or whole acres that you can buy in the middle of Texas. And you're not going to see anybody for 8 hours this way and 8 hours that way. If that's what you're looking for, don't move into the second largest metropolis in the United States of America and live in the middle of the city. It's not reasonable. So there has to be some level of reasonableness on the part of the tenant. Now, if the kids really are waking up at 5 in the morning and stomping around, that family needs to control their children. That cannot happen. But if that same thing happens at 7:30 in the morning, tenant needs to realize that's when kids get up. And that's going to happen to them no matter where they move. There are now families living in downtown Los Angeles. So it doesn't really matter where you go, you're going to have children in a multi-family building. Why they're called multi-families, there's lots of families. Families have children in them. That's what families are. So you can't expect just 100% peace and quiet. Same thing when a tenant complains about construction noise, especially when it's construction from across the street, a building you don't own. There's nothing you can do about that. And you need to tell them that. It's not within our control. Your own construction, you have to keep within the business hours, 8 to 6, Monday through Saturday. But other than that, there's just a lot that's completely outside your control. On the other hand, there are certain situations where it does get out of control and the tenant's complaints are legitimate. For example, regular kids playing is one thing at normal times. Sometimes you have a kid who has a particular disability, and that causes them to yell at the top of their lungs or bang on walls or just make an unreasonable amount of noise for long periods of time. I feel really bad for those families, but that kid's disability cannot become the responsibility of all the other families that live around them, because that's not what they signed up for. That's not what they paid for. And so they need to either find a way to control that noise, or they need to find a place to live that can countenance that kind of environment that they're creating. And I know that doesn't sound very nice, but that's the reality. As a landlord, you're sort of an arbiter of what makes sense, what's common sense and what's right and wrong in terms of how the tenants are interacting with one another. So you really just have to use sort of a common sense barometer. Are they complaining about nonsense that they should have expected? Or are they complaining about something they really shouldn't have to be subjected to? So,
Right.
Yeah.
Situation where I know for a fact it's a circumstance they shouldn't have to be subjected to, like where it is the children that are awake at 4 or 5 in the morning being allowed to scream at the top of their lungs like it's the regular 2 p.m. afternoon. Like
right. That's
what
not
can
okay.
I do that rambunctious family who's just letting things run amok.
They're violating other people's quiet enjoyment. And if they don't stop it, they will get evicted. Their kids are there. It's their job to control those children. No, you can't
But
keep.
our quiet hours are 10 p.m. to 8 a.m. for the whole building. It doesn't matter what the noise is, whether it's vacuuming at 5 a.m. or whether it's your kids screaming at 5 a.m. asking you to abide by the quiet enjoyment guidelines.
Yeah, nobody has to vacuum at 5 a.m. No one.
Right.
I don't care how hard you work. That's not a thing you need to do.
Right. Okay.
Right. And no one's kids need to be up at 5 a.m. Playing a rugby game above your head. It's just not necessary.
Okay.
Yeah. You had a follow-up, Ben?
You guys had a question. You touched on it earlier. Things that are in and out of a landlord's control. That's a lot of the complaints that we get. I have 3 right now on my desk of this tenant's an asshole and he says horrible racist things to me or my spouse or whatnot. Okay. Thoughts on how we deal with it? I mean, on one hand, cool. JP had one where they did not like the 2 people running for president. So one had, essentially let's go Brandon flag up, and the other one had I hate Trump. It was great, but they hated each other and they just screamed at each other the whole time. On one hand, it's free speech. On the other hand, I'm not a kindergarten teacher. Thoughts on how to deal with those?
Yeah. So whenever you have 2 tenants who are fighting with each other, both being kind of crazy, I can't evict either of them because the star witness in one case is the guy I'm evicting in the other case. So they're going to cancel each other out. And what we do is we simply write them letters and say, hey, stop acting like a 5-year-old. And you also stop acting like a 5-year-old. Otherwise, we're going to evict one or both of you. And then we don't do anything else.
Okay. And even though I start losing tenants around them?
Once you start losing tenants around them, then you can start evicting both of them because the other tenants are the ones who will be the complainers. But I cannot tell you how many times I just have 2 tenants complaining about each other and nobody else is involved. There are no other complaints. As soon as I have the other tenants who are not involved in the fight complaining about one or both, then I can start evicting them.
Okay. Is it anything that rise to a different level if it's hate speech about their gender or religious preferences or any of those things?
Yes, I can get away with evicting someone in LA a lot easier for one of those things, or just even an excessive use of foul language. Like we had this one guy we had to evict. The video is really key here. If this is the reason, I need the guy on video or the gal on video. This guy would come into the offices and he would just start screaming this list of, it didn't even make sense, curse words. And like English wasn't his first language, so it was like he made up curse words, mother shit, but it was like just this long list of made up curse words. And he would do it all the time and just stop people in the hallway, stop people from moving. And we had like 20 of these videos. And we won the case. He didn't want to settle. And after seeing all of that, now he wasn't using any racial epithets. He wasn't using any hate speech. He was saying like idiot and stupid mixed in with a whole bunch of other, F-bombs and stuff like that. But he wasn't doing that. But it was enough where it's something where a judge or a jury is going to say no one should have to live with this guy. This is a nuisance. If you're talking hate speech, that definitely rises to that level. If it's just a guy, this guy likes Trump and this guy likes, the not Trump, whoever it happens to be, no, that doesn't qualify. If they're just yelling at each other and saying Republicans are bad and Democrats are bad, no, those are just kindergartners. Yeah. If the screaming itself is now disturbing the other tenants, that's when we get into a nuisance issue.
Thanks, Nev. I took some trying to be cognizant of our time here. One of the big ones we get is fix it. Okay, cool. We're going to fix it. Oh no, you can't come in. And I don't want anybody to come in.
Very simple
I'm
process.
supposed to fix it by osmosis, I'm assuming,
No.
or just walk past it, but
This is a setup. That is a setup. They're trying to set you up for a HAP case. And so we have the anti-setup procedure.
okay.
You want us to fix something, you put up a 24-hour notice. You come in on that day that it's set. You have to come with someone else who's there to see the what needs to be fixed. You have to take a video of that interaction. And if they don't let you in, that's step one. The next day, we do a 3-day cure quit and say, hey, you have to let us in. The lease says so. The law says so. We put up a 24-hour notice. We need to make repairs that you requested. You didn't let us in. You have 3 days to let us in. And we're coming back on the 3rd day, and you need to let us in. That is the 24-hour notice. You don't have to do another one. You come back on that 3rd day, the 3rd business day, and again, you video the interaction. And if they again don't let you in, then we are going to evict them based on that.
Okay.
All right. The videos, again, are key.
What about the tenants that want you to go in like a specific time? Like, oh, you have to come in after 12 because I have meetings in the morning, but the maintenance guy can come in the morning.
Try and find a time that works for them. And if it can't be, I don't think anyone has meetings 9 to 12 every single day, Monday through Sunday. So there's got to be some time that maintenance can just come in, at least for the initial part, and take a look and see what needs to be fixed. If they're just being obstinate and they're saying, no, you can only come in at 9:57 p.m. on Wednesday, they're, again, just setting you up. That doesn't work. Again, it's just about common sense and reasonableness. If they're trying to accommodate you, but they're busy on this day and they're busy on that day, just pick a day that they're not busy. If they're being obstinate, now we're going to have to pick our own time. Another thing that you asked me to address was LAHD and city complaints.
Yeah.
All right. It is generally pointless to argue with the city about things they want you to fix, unless it is something outrageous. For example, when the city comes in and says you have to upgrade the entire electrical panel and all the electricity in the entire building, that's something you might want to take up with a supervisor, because that is a massively expensive fix. I see that exceedingly rarely. The vast majority, 99.9% of all the notices in order to comply are usually about somewhat ticky-tacky things. Fix a lock, fix
Carpets.
carpets, faucet, hot water, air conditioner, heater, things like that.
The big one we get is reglazing the tub, but then
Yeah.
the fun part in Los Angeles is you then have to disclose that, guess what? It's toxic, and then they never let you in. We offer to relocate sometimes. We will credit for a day. Any advice on what should we credit? Daily rent? Or,
If they call the city,
yeah, this is our point. Is you called the city, now we're supposed to fix it. Now what?
again, if they don't leave, if they don't work with you, we're going to do a 3-day notice to cure quit. That's not a thing where you have to do a THP. Now you are trying to comply with an order.
Okay.
Right? And they're interfering with your ability to comply with the order. That means they're violating the law. We're going to evict them for that.
Okay.
That usually is enough. Most people don't want to get evicted over silly little stuff like that. Eventually they'll let you in. In terms of a credit, they're not entitled to live even a single day for free. So usually the easiest thing to do is just tell them, here's $200 and $50 a day, per diem for food. You can use this $200 at a hotel. You want to pocket it and stay at your buddy's house for a day, also no problem. But we're going to pay you to go live somewhere else for the day. But you still have to pay your rent for them. They don't get a rent credit and their hotel covered. That doesn't work.
Okay.
Yeah. If they say they'd rather have the rent credit, no problem. Just document it. right? And a lot of the times, if it's it's significant repair, especially if they're claiming some, oh, I think I might have gotten sick, whatever it is, we do want to have some sort of a release done, especially if we're giving them a serious rent credit. A lot of the times, the rent credit will be substantial.
Mhm.
If we're doing the rent credit version, or if we're doing the give them money version, you don't want to start handing someone hundreds of dollars, or even and especially not thousands of dollars, without getting some sort of acknowledgement from them that you've made the repairs and that they're releasing all other claims against you, because they can simply take your $4,000 or $5,000 and say, thank you, here's my lawsuit, now where's the rest of the money? So getting that release is very important. That's obviously something we can help you with anytime you'd like. But in terms of dealing with LHD, just do what they say. If the tenant is not permitting you entry, you need to share that with the inspector, and the inspectors are very cognizant of the fact that a lot of these tenants are crazy and set up these ridiculous situations, and they will be more than happy to give you an extension, give you time, sometimes, even just close out cases. It doesn't happen quite as often, but they will understand as long as you are showing them evidence that you are doing your best. And a lot of times they'll even straight up tell you, you need to evict this person. And they'll give you time to evict the person so that when the person's out, you can come and make whatever correction it is. The city is not necessarily there just to help tenants. The city is there to impose their rules on property. And if the tenant is the one getting in the way of that, they'll ask you to evict them. All they want is their fiefdom to be followed. That's really what the city's interested in. So if that means the tenant's got to go in order for you to be able to fix it and make it right for the next person, that's what has to happen. But just do what they say.
Thank you.
Yeah. I think we talked about the move outs.
Yeah, we get a lot of deposit disputes, obviously.
So what you need to do is, aside from the pictures, you have to have a very detailed list of what you are taking from. It can't be wear and tear. And it has to be something where you are attaching an invoice, a PO, a receipt, whatever it is. Or you're following the rules for how you're charging for your internal workers. So you can charge an hourly rate, whatever the normal hourly rate is for your internal workers, but that means you got to make your own receipt. Got to make your own list of what they were doing, when they did it, how long it took, what you're charging the tenant for it.
And that all goes back in the initial deposit letter, correct?
In initial deposit letter? You mean the first move out letter?
Yeah, when we send them the letter and say, here's the refund, all the receipts go.
Correct. You want to attach as much as you have at the time. Now, a question we get all the time is, what happens if the apartment is so messed up that it takes us longer than 21 days to fix it? No problem. Just give them what you got. Send them something at 21 days and say, hey, you messed this place up so bad. We're still in the process of fixing it. Here's what we've done so far. Here are our estimates. And we'll send you a follow-up letter when we're done. Make sure you're sending something with some level of detail on that 21st day. And if you need to, do a follow-up afterwards.
Okay.
No one is expecting you to work magic and do 6 weeks worth of work.
Construction in 21 days.
Yeah, it doesn't work. But no judge is going to say, oh, you didn't take down all the walls that they set on fire and replace them completely in 21 days. Sorry. No, they're not going to say that. That's number one. Number two, this whole notion that tenants think that if you don't meet the 21 days, they get their deposit back no matter what is nonsense. That's actually not the law. They don't get to destroy your apartment and then do a gotcha because you sent the letter on day 22. The law is really as follows. You have a right to essentially self-help by taking money out of the deposit with no real due process. Okay, that's just a right that you get.
Mm-hmm.
Theoretically speaking, if you didn't do it within 21 days, you lose that self-help right. So now they can demand, well, you owe me the entire deposit back. No problem. Fine. I might owe you the deposit back, but I still have a right as the landlord to sue you for the damages you caused. Well, the damages you caused cost more than the deposit. So if they come and try and sue you in small claims, even if our letter went out after the 21 days, we still have a right as an offset to repair the damages they caused. They don't get a windfall just because you missed a day or a week or a month. The other thing is, a lot of the times they'll say, oh, well, I get treble damages because you're holding it in bad faith. As long as there's a good reason you're holding the deposit, even if you end up being wrong, no, they don't get treble damages.
Okay. Yeah, that's usually the biggest threat we get.
Right. So again, just don't be intimidated. Every tenant who wants to make problems thinks that they're Johnny Cochran because they can look up a law on ChatGPT, right? And now they're on the United States Supreme Court. You're not. You don't know the rules. Don't be intimidated. James.
Yeah, what Ben was saying about the Trump-Biden feud.
Yeah.
I know, like at this building here, we don't allow floor mats in front of apartment doors. And where I worked before, Westside Habitats, we had the street. I live here, but we had the previous election, but someone chucked a rock through a tenant's window because they had I forgot, a Biden or Bush, I forgot what it was, but they chucked the thing through it, and the tenant said, I know it was because of my sign. So we put a notice out, don't know if it was legal, but you can't put political signs, anything in your window that would make, and I don't know if that would cover pride flags or whatever, I don't know, but that way it would just keep instigation away from people knowing this. Are we allowed to post a notice?
You live in WeHo. We allow pride flags in WeHo. We're not going to.
No. I know that.
The ones to stand on that on that one.
Yeah, no, yeah. I'm not saying not to allow it, but I'm just saying, are we allowed to say you can't put certain things up because we don't disagree or agree that it will stop instigation or people throwing a rock through your window from the street, or are we allowed to do
There's
that?
definitely rules about religious items. You're not allowed to tell them no religious items.
Our stance that we've taken on political signs is that it must be an official campaign sign, because I think you're allowed to put those up legally speaking, but you can't put F these people and I hate Joe Biden up as yours. That's not an official campaign slogan.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But if you put, whoever 2028, I don't think I can stop you.
Oh, okay.
Niv?
Yeah. Yeah. In an apartment, you can kind of make whatever rules you want so long as it's not religious items. So if you feel like someone posting a political thing is going to cause problems, yes, you theoretically can ask them not to. They're going to say, it's my free speech. We're going to say, you don't have a right to free speech in the common areas. Right? And also, people don't really understand this because it's kind of a nuanced point of law. Free speech means the government cannot restrict your speech. You're not the government. You're a private building. You can set essentially whatever rules you want so long as those rules are not prohibited by some other law. So if you tell people you're not allowed to put up Stars of David or what are those things called that they put up in Christmas? With the
Christmas trees?
No, the things on the doors.
Like advent calendars?
No, the circle wreaths. Thank you. Okay.
I'd get there eventually.
Right. Okay. So you're not allowed to tell people not to put that up.
Right.
But in terms of a political symbol or a political sign, yeah, you can restrict that. When it, I suppose when it gets overlap, like if someone wants to put up a Jesus loves Trump,
Yeah.
I'd say just let it go.
Okay. We deal with it a lot as managers. Quickly here.
That's okay.
Sorry.
Anybody, go ahead.
Niv, I got a
Yeah.
question for you. Hang on a second. We deal a lot with this on the manager side. Leasing leases it. It's leased to a single female. She's great. It's her and a kid. Yay. Beautiful. Absolutely fine. And then on move-in day, she shows up with a husband or partner or someone, and we go, "Who are you?" And they go, "Oh, he's going to live here too."
Okay.
Okay.
Rules are different depending on what city we're in and whether or not it's an RSO property.
Mostly Los Angeles,
Okay.
and 50-50 on the other one. I mean, if it's sometimes it's
Okay.
it happens in both.
So generally speaking, it's like this. You have a right to control who's in your property. They're allowed, generally speaking, one extra adult and one extra kid.
Mm-hmm.
They're not allowed both. So if they start bringing in two people,
Mm-hmm.
two adults, now it doesn't matter who that is. You can three-day them because they're violating the lease in a way that is actually evictable. If it's your situation where it's just an extra person, you say, fine, you live here, but you have to qualify.
Yeah.
And so,
And they don't usually.
right. So you have to ask them to qualify in writing. And then if they give you an application and you don't like it for some reason, then you can say, no, you don't qualify to live here. So we're not going to permit you to live here. And that's a 3-day to cure requirement. But when it's the first adult or first minor child, when it's the first extra child, don't even bother.
Yeah.
When it's third, fourth, fifth, sixth, yeah, then we can bother.
Okay. And if they move in, we're married, husband didn't apply, I still have to take them, or I can deny him living there.
You can deny them living there as long as you've given them an opportunity to apply and you are denying them reasonably.
Okay.
This is a situation where because it's going to be the setup for an eviction, you
Yeah.
are going to want to tell them why you're denying them. And it needs to be a non-discriminatory, reasonable reason.
That you have a 438 credit score and are a felon?
Yeah, those are both good reasons.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's often what we get. And we're like, well, he didn't apply because we knew you would deny him. No shit.
Exactly. So, and we're going to continue to do that. You don't have to leave, but Sparky does have to go.
Okay. And if it's RSO, does that change?
No, these are the rules for ours.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry, Laura, go ahead.
Well, yeah, so I have a specific situation where I have a tenant who has handwritten a sign that's
what?
like handwritten like a protest sign. And it's
Alright.
like patronizing me, I'm targeted. I can't remember everything else the sign says on it. I lost power on my computer, but I'm trying to pull it up here. Dang it. It's like a bunch of ramblings of a madman written on a white sign with Sharpie, and it's on a picket sign that he walks around on the street holding, like camping with. Also happens to be a Section 8 tenant, causes problems in the building. How do I address the sign without
Where's
him
the sign?
feeling more patronized and targeted like his sign says?
Where's the sign now?
It's currently sitting on his patio when he's not using it.
And all it says is, I'm being targeted?
It says here, now I can read it. It literally says, I'm targeted, patronizing, stalking, gaslighting, torture, two-party consent, confidentiality, exploitation. It's literally a white sign, all those things written in Sharpie on a picketing sign.
And other tenants are complaining about this?
Yes.
What is their beef with this?
Their beef was just that it was disturbing them. I didn't end up addressing it because it disappeared. It was a 1-day complaint situation. But I'm saying, would that be something that we take a stand on? Like, like when complaints aren't really for us to deal with. It's like, you are in a communal space. He does have the right to free speech. He's outside on the street picketing. He comes back inside, leaves it sitting on his patio. How's it affecting you?
That's what I would say.
Okay, yeah, that was my gut, so I didn't say anything. But now, just hearing this conversation, I thought I'd just see your take.
If the sign says "kill the Jews," yeah, that's bad.
Okay, yeah,
I'll evict that person real quick.
Yeah.
right.
But
That was it.
if it just kind of a typical Venice Beach crazy person sign, it's
Right.
not much we can really do about that.
Okay, that's what I thought. We didn't do anything about it. I was just curious on that one.
Yeah, I mean, if they want to live with a whole bunch of sane people, it's called Orange County. Everyone down there is really nice. You live in LA. This is like a magnet for insane people. It's just what it is.
Right.
If you want to live in this city, hey, got to take the good with the bad.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good deal. Before we get out of here, did anybody have any other questions? If we keep them more general, it's helpful for the rest of us as opposed to weird, I have this problem with these two specific kind of questions.
I have one more question.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a tenant that's like complains about roaches.
Yeah.
And I think based on what I'm getting is he wants rent credit more than doing fumigation. But every time I want to be like, hey, should we do a spray? And he's like, nope, I don't want to do a spray.
Document it. Roaches is one of those things that you can make up real easy. You just go get a roach, drop it on the floor, take a picture. So if all he's looking to do is fraudulently get some rent credits out of you, and he's refusing fumigation, no. And again, it's that same process where he's saying, I have roaches, 24-hour notice, we're here to do fumigation. No, you can't come in. 3-day notice to cure quick, we're here to do fumigation. 3 days later, no, you can't come in. Fine, we're evicting you. You're the one who complained about the roaches. Now we really do have to fix it, because if you have roaches, if you really do, that means the other tenants are going to start to have roaches if we don't fix it. So guess what, buddy? You're either letting us in or you're going to get evicted. I take a very carrot and stick approach to the tenants. When tenants are good and they pay on time and they follow the rules and they don't complain a lot and they're not annoying, you should treat them like royalty. Those are really, really good people. Our entire business relies on those people paying the rent, right? And as your vendor, I also rely on them paying the rent. So those people need to be kings and queens. The rest of the 5% of the troublemakers, you need to be very strict with them. Because otherwise, it's going to get out that they could just walk all over you. I'm not saying to violate any of the laws. I'm just saying be strict with what you permit them to do and what gets out in the building as, oh, I can just take advantage. Because it's very, very easy for the tenants to start to feel like the building belongs to them because they pay rent sometimes. And you don't want them to get that feeling. They need to remember in the back of their heads, they're visitors.
To that point, routine maintenance requests, your suggestion, post notice or take permission to enter in writing? We're talking like my cabinet hinge is squeaky. I got to fix blinds.
Emails, texts, when can we come in? Preferably maybe through the Appfolio or
something that keeps it.
Yeah, so that it keeps it. All of that is totally fine. As long as they're telling you, sure, come in Monday at 10 a.m., you do not need to put up a 24-hour notice.
Okay.
Again, if they're making the request and then saying you can't come, that's when you got to go through the procedure that we outlined.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
Any other questions?
I have a quick one.
Yeah.
So say we have a tenant that wants to move out because another tenant is just loud or kind of a nuisance.
Yep.
And like, how would we go about that? I know you're saying like if the tenant is kind of loud and there's noise complaints coming from them, they're like eligible for an eviction essentially. Like, what's the proper way to decide what to do there? Like, should we try and keep the tenants or should we remove the tenant that's an issue?
It all depends. If the tenant who's allegedly making noise is being normal, is making a normal amount of noise, and the tenant who wants to leave is a pain in the butt, let the pain in the butt leave. Just let them out of their lease. Whatever, it doesn't matter. They're giving you a free eviction, so it's a lot cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
The other way around, and you want to keep this person who's complaining, and the person who's making the noise is the one you want to get out, then start the eviction.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
I have one for you, Niv. I get more and more requests to terminate their lease on 1946.7, sexual assault or threats, intimidating.
Yeah.
You take those on face value or
As long as it's on the list of things that qualify as evidence. So a restraining order, a doctor's note, psychologist's note, police report, any of those things. Yeah.
What if it's a police report that they filed but no cop showed up? Because you can do that in LA.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the time it's like a police report. If the cops don't show up, you're going to end up having to go to the precinct and make your report one way or another. If there's domestic violence,
Okay.
I would mess with it.
Okay.
And a debate I was having with another manager just yesterday, so I just had to research it, was what do you do with that person's security deposit?
Mm-hmm.
Right? My suggestion is, and this may be a conservative approach, but I think on balance, a judge in LA is going to agree with me. You have to give them back their half of the deposit. Because the way the law reads is it says you cannot hold a person who terminates their lease as breaching the lease after the 14 days. So the way it works is that they're only liable for the rent 14 days after they give you the notice. And then after that, they're off the lease and you cannot go after them for that. Right? So what happens in a security deposit disposition situation? It says when the tenant vacates after 21 days, you have to give them back their deposit with the calculations. So if they didn't pay you for those 14 days, no problem. Take that out of their deposit. At least their half of the rent out of their half of the deposit.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's just damage, you're not going to be able to prove whether that damage was caused by them because the other person's still there.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't even do the proper disposition. So unless it's for rent or for other charges, late fees, utilities, whatever it happens to be, something you can really document was already a problem at least 14 days before I gave you, I would give them back their deposit, their net amount of their half of the deposit.
And then can I 3-day for the rest of the deposit from the other person?
No.
Okay. Niv, you take away all my fun, but all right, that's fine.
There is no real way to 3-day someone for a deposit. What you do is, generally speaking, that person is not going to be able to pay the rent.
Yeah.
And so we're going to end up giving them a 3-day to pay or quit once the next first of the month rolls around, and they won't be able to pay.
Okay. All right. Niv, I appreciate it. Anybody else have any other questions? And we'll give you the time. I appreciate it.
No problem. Nobody else has any questions? That's it.
I have one other question.
Okay.
Sorry, guys, I ended up sticking around.
Oh, Brianna sticking around.
Yeah, I like the information. Okay, so this happens actually quite often when I'm or when someone submits an application. Let's say it's 3 roommates, and out of those 3 roommates, one has terrible credit, like they just don't meet the requirements. So technically, Jeff will send it back and say, you know, Joe Schmo is denied, but the other 2 people are approved.
Right.
When I send that denial or that adverse letter over and the other roommates are like wondering what's going on, legally, am I allowed to like disclose that information to the roommates about the fact that they were denied and why?
Do you need to?
A lot of times it does happen. It does come up where the roommates are like, oh, why can't this person move in with us? Like our 3rd roommate, you know? So like, do I just say, like, am I allowed to say, oh, they were denied because of credit? Like, am I legally allowed to disclose that to other people?
I just wouldn't, because it's not necessary. So
Okay.
if you've told the 3rd roommate why you're denying them,
Mhm.
and the other 2 want to know how come you denied the 3rd one, just tell those 2, ask your friend. I told him, just go ask your friend. It's none of their business.
Mhm.
If you're allowed to, why? On the off chance that they might sue you for some sort of silly thing, we don't even need them.
Okay.
The risk benefit analysis suggests that it provides you absolutely no benefit whatsoever. If
Yeah,
the
I guess
problem-
I guess the only reason why it comes up that in that way sometimes is because a lot of times we're speaking with people in like a group message just to have, you know, one place to correspond. So sometimes that's why it will come up traditionally in amongst everybody instead of me individually texting everyone. So.
It also sometimes works as a group denial, that if those 3 can't live together, then they're not going to lease the apartment. So then
Exactly.
say one of you didn't qualify.
Okay.
And then if they want to say which one, like,
That's between the three of you.
no, it's separately email the one that didn't qualify and say, hey, John, you didn't qualify. And then you go back to the group text and say, it's one of you. The one of you that knows you didn't qualify knows. If he wants to tell you, he'll tell you.
Okay. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem. Anybody else before we get off?
Thank you.
All
No
right.
problem. Thanks everyone for joining.
Niv, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Anytime.
Thanks, guys.
Talk soon.
Thanks, Ben.
No problem. Bye.
Okay,